All right, good evening, everyone. This is Rotimi Eyitayo, and I am live on Investigate Live. And it's a great time to be here. And I would like to see how many people can join us tonight. Yes, so we are live on Investigate Live, and tonight we'll be having a very good time, a great time together. So, if you don't mind, let's just expect others to join us in the next few minutes. And our conversation tonight is it's quite straightforward and simple. So we'll be having a conversation around the topic called Inventing Tomorrow. So Investigate Life actually is a session that we have every Sunday by 5 p.m. And we always have the opportunity to host this session with RONKEPOSH. RONKEPOSH is my co-host on Investigate Live, and tonight I hope with time she will join us, and then we'll have other people join us as well. So if you're just watching from wherever you're watching from any part of the world that you're watching from, this is Investigate Live. It's a knowledge platform. What we simply do is to try to tackle issues that bother around professionalism within business and education space. And what we try to do is to ensure that we bring solutions. We don't just talk about the concerns, but we try to look at solutions as well. And from time to time, we subject ourselves to a line of thought. And in the line of thought, we try to ensure that the topic drives us towards empowering people and equipping people to be the best that they can be. So I'd like to thank you for joining tonight, and it's going to be a great time together. Last week was also awesome, and we had so many people join us from across the world, from US, from UK. We had people join us from across Nigeria and Africa as well, and I believe that tonight is not going to be a different one. So we're streaming on YouTube. We're streaming on Facebook. We're streaming on Instagram Live. So along the line, I believe that my co-host will join us. Thank you, Blessing, for joining. Thank you for coming online. And we will have other people join us. And as they join us, we will definitely, engage everyone that is joining. So thank you. In case you're just joining us tonight, we will be spending time talking about inventing tomorrow. Inventing tomorrow. For those who had the privilege to see the post and the message on the broadcast before we started tonight, I spent time to say that we're not going to use the same tools that we've been using. And when I say tools, I just mean an approach. Our approach to having conversation on Investigate Live has always been to ensure that one way or the other, we're speaking and sharing people's concerns and speaking people's mind and bringing solutions from the level of insight that we have, from the depth of insight that we're able to reach out based on research done on the topic or subject matter. But tonight we are going to take a step further. We're going to put insight a little bit aside. Not that it doesn't exist any longer, or it's not that it's not useful anymore, but we will spend some time with the tool of foresight. We want to be deliberate, and we want to inspire minds to also be deliberate, to say, you know what, guys, what should we be doing? What should we be thinking about? What should we be acting on? What should we be experiencing when it comes to talking about the future, when it comes to talking about the sector, the future of businesses, the future of the sector, education to be precise? What should we be looking at? So I would also try to follow the approach of last week. And so as many people who are able to join in and who would be willing and bold enough to also co-host, I will be willing to share the platform tonight because really it's not going to be restricted, and I don't wish to enjoy the show alone. I don't wish to enjoy the party alone. So if you're there and you would like to join us, or you would like to co-host with us, please feel free. Let us know. Let us know. Just let us know. Thank you, Lola and Nikki, for joining online on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining. So this is Investigate Live, and we are speaking on the topic inventing tomorrow. Kemi Ogunsoya, thank you for joining. And when we look at the word tomorrow, probably I'll just give a background information so we start all the same. It's just about 6 minutes into the session. When we talk about tomorrow, many things come to people's mind, and I think sometimes it's best for us to start with that. The things we so many times find ourselves familiar with sometimes puts us at a crossroad, or at a point where we might be able to, or we might not be able to, get the best of advantage out of things. So tomorrow, really, I remember some years ago speaking with, was I speaking, or I was in an audience, but better still, I was in a conversation with some experts and senior colleagues, and, it just came out of that conversation that there's really no day called tomorrow. And why am I saying this? Because I believe that as everyone is listening to me tonight, there are certain things that we might be doing, or we are fond of doing, and we might not understand the implications of what it is. So when you say tomorrow, tomorrow is not any day, because by tomorrow, the tomorrow we say today, we're speaking about tomorrow, and tomorrow is Monday, right? However, when you look at the day, if it's now Monday that you spoke about yesterday, which was tomorrow, also changes automatically. And when you're talking about tomorrow on Monday, you mean you're talking about Tuesday. So tomorrow is actually today that we spoke about yesterday. Tomorrow is actually the day that we spoke about yesterday. So there's really no day called tomorrow. We have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so when we talk about reinventing tomorrow, what we're trying to say is this, that we're not necessarily speaking about some time in the distant future. We're speaking about the capacity and the possibility of what we have starting today. So when we say inventing tomorrow, we are also speaking about inventing today, inventing the moment, inventing the opportunities that we have, inventing the time that we have. And then if we zone it down to sector by sector, or zone it down to industries within sectors, especially when it comes to education, like we always do, we are trying to say that, is it possible that we spend some time to talk about tomorrow of education today, and let's begin to explore and see how we can invent, right, tomorrow. We want to understand that tomorrow belongs to us, and when we have the privilege to feature in it, and then I say feature in it, meaning that we have the privilege by chance, we have the privilege by practice, we have the privilege by life, then it means that we must be able to ensure that tomorrow that we're looking at as individuals should become a reality of some sort, that everyone can say that their signature was affixed to it. So tomorrow really is an opportunity that we all should be a part of. Tomorrow is an opportunity that you and I must be a part of. And how can we become a part of tomorrow? One of the ways we can become a part of tomorrow is by inventing that tomorrow. Because invention, meaning that you are able to create something through the insight or through the vision from within, you are able to birth something. And so we all need to understand that it's our responsibility to begin to look for examples, to look for ways. And COVID-19 season, the pandemic, the lockdown is a beautiful opportunity for us to not just talk about post-COVID, during COVID, new normal, but let's really talk about how we can invent. So many people have asked me questions across several platforms. Thank you, Dimeji, for joining. Thank you, Arianta, for joining. So many people have asked me sometimes questions that, while I'm answering, I remember I had the privilege of mentoring some few people in a particular group during our 20 million naira giveaway. And someone asked the question. I said, you know what, in what way can so happen? And when I was sharing my insight, and next thing the person said was like, in Nigeria. And that caught me. And I had to say that that is the reason that a lot of people have not been able to launch out into the deep of the things they are called into, to the deep of the capacity that they have, to the deep of the moment. When I say deep, I mean to depth. You know, the reason is because a lot of people believe that certain big things, certain beautiful things, certain things that are novel should not necessarily be named as coming from Nigeria or Africa. Certain things that actually have the capacity to change life at a geometrical level. Some people believe that those kind of things is not for us. It's for people that are not within this landscape or geographical space. And I don't totally agree with that, because if you've been able to conceive an idea, either through your experience, your exposure, your expertise, or through the through a wind of thought, because I believe that sometimes ideation does not only take place because you're knowledgeable or because you're skilled. Ideation sometimes takes place because of the aura of the moment. Now, if these things happen, for you to understand that, and I'm sure sometimes we hear some statements, but we gloss over it and then we say, oh, that's just motivational. I believe that if someone can conceive something, if somebody can internalize and say, this is something I'm thinking about, if that thing is put out, if that thing finds expression, if that thing is chiseled, if that thing is worked upon, trust me, there are possibilities that can come out from it. It just takes us for those of us that are able to think something through. It takes us to just put some questions to it. You know, sometimes the beautiful thing about asking questions or putting questions at things or throwing questions at things is not because you totally have immediate answers, but sometimes questions have a way of molding our ideas to fit into the right frame. Questions have a way of getting us to change paradigm and perspective so that it suits the context of the hour. Paradigms are things that would definitely happen in you and I from time to time just to shape the way we think. But the way we think in itself sometimes begins to adjust to the questions we push out. What if? Have you thought of this? How about that? You see, then you begin to have a light bulb moment. Oh, that's true. If we factor A into this situation, then it simply means that B might occur. And you know, that's the idea about it, that we should see on the walls of Facebook, we should see on the streets of Instagram, we should see on LinkedIn, we should see in blogs, particularly for the space that we belong. You know, we should see things that would inspire us to understand that tomorrow is something we should look forward to. You see, a lot of people are looking so much forward to the regular thing they've used to being. I mean, they are used to, which everybody keeps saying, we can't wait to go back to. We can't wait to go back to. Now, there's a good part of anticipating that things become better, and then for the want of better word, things become normal. But you see, normal in itself too has its own adjustment. So what it simply means is this: in the place where things are silent, in the place where things are being reviewed, in the place where things are being reconstructed, we need as many people to begin to understand that it is our responsibility, it is our choice, it is our chance to be able to say something. Let's design the kind of future that we want. Let's invent tomorrow. Let's color the day. Let's color the day. Let's color the names. Let's fix the picture of what we want to feature in, right? And that's why you find out that sometimes when people talk about transformation or when people talk about reforms in a sector, reforms, for example, in a sector like education, you find out that most times we speak about so many problems because we are not willing to drill down to talking about tomorrow in the concept of not a far distant future, but how we can invent it. So most times we say things that are applicable but outside of us. We say it with passion, we say it with energy, we say it with zeal, we say it with zest, but most of the time those things are what? Outside of us. I see one thing about it is if anybody is listening to you and wants to take you seriously, the person will begin to ask himself, okay, fine, you sound nice. Okay, fine, you've made a good point. But I don't think that you'll be able to do any better than the people you're complaining about. And that's the truth about it, because most of the things we are saying, even though we might not necessarily be wrong, but there is a piece that is missing, which is where you come in. Because if we open our doors to some of these ideas that we have, the question is, how do we get it fixed? Have you figured yourself? So we look at it, this is May 2020, and we're looking at June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. Before the 2020 year is over, how do we want to invent tomorrow? And when I say tomorrow, I'm talking about taking consideration of every day that leads into tomorrow, meaning that we take into concept and into consideration today as we speak. And that's why we're talking about that today. We take into consideration what should happen tomorrow. How can we invent tomorrow? How can we make it what it is and what it should be? So if I was to take us on a journey tonight, and I'm willing to answer your questions, but also I would love for you out there to ask your questions, to contribute, to share some of the things that you know are probably things that you've experienced firsthand, or things that you would like to experience. So I'd like us to have that at the back of our minds, because when we look at a topic like inventing tomorrow, it's an action topic. It's a topic that requires us to not just say something, but to do something with what we say. To not just do something, but to ensure we have from what we do. I am a person that is I'm a very practical person, and those of you that are close to me and understand the way I think or what I do, you realize that I'm always concerned about having the three together. That we do not just say, because let's understand it, there's the place of saying. A lot of people sometimes just stay quiet. Now, it's not good to all together be quiet all the time. There's a time for speaking. There's a time to saying things. There's a time to sharing knowledge. There's a time to opening people's eyes. There's a time to making sure that people hear from things, because they say repetition makes for emphasis. There's a time to say. Now, when we understand the place of saying, we must not also belittle the place of doing. We must be ensured in the fact that as many people will say, as we weigh the saying, we should also back up with the doing. The doing reinforces what we say, because when we look at it, we create a mixture that, okay, there's so much being said on Zoom, there's so much being said on WhatsApp, there's so much being said on Telegram, there's so much being said on Instagram, there's so much being said on Facebook. So many things are happening. Conversations, lovely conversation, awesome conversations. And these are things that are right. Sometimes some people don't like the fact that a lot of people are saying the same thing. I don't think we should be angry altogether, because it takes us to keep on repeating things for things to gather momentum. Momentum requires different voices coming together, just like a thunderstorm. Our voices can become a storm. Thank you, Queenette, for joining. Thank you, Carol, for joining. I hope Carol is willing to join me today, because one good turn deserves another. Okay, so like I was saying, we must be willing to express ourselves, but not just expressing ourselves. Back up the expression with doing. You see, when we when we begin to do, right, it does something. It puts validation on the things that has been said. When we begin to do it, it actually creates confidence in the people, and you find out that many people who've done great things, which eventually was celebrated not just locally but sometimes globally. You find out that at the end of the day, they just decided to do something. They probably did not see the end from the beginning in total picture, but they decided to do something. So when we say we must do, now don't stop there. You see, some people have the school of thought that we must say and do. What you say, you must do. What you do is because it's what you said, which is beautiful. We must ensure that we take our saying and place it into the bedrock of doing. But you see, every doing must be assessed, every doing must be weighed, every doing must have the potency to create a having. Meaning that if our doing is not functional, if our doing does not get result, if our doing is not relational, and at the end of the day, we might not get the desired result. It might just end up in futility. And so, what it simply means is that we must come together in speaking one mind, in speaking as one voice, in having one vision. We must put to that one work workforce. When I say workforce, I'm not talking about employment alone. I mean, we must work to what we've done, to what we've said, so that we also ensure that we deliver on what we have also done. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as you listen to me tonight, I want you to understand, and I will be throwing some points at us because it's a question-driven kind of conversation. It's a thought-provoking kind of conversation. It's something that should inspire you to get to the point where you're saying that, wait a minute, why have we not thought about this? Now, do you know the beauty of what the pandemic has done? If you know the gift of what this coronavirus period has created for us, then most of us will begin to ask ourselves, this is the best time that we are, as a people, able to turn ourselves into inventors. But you see, a lot of times what people do is they snoop around and sneak around looking for what to see, looking for what to copy, looking for what to adjust with. But we understand that there's a possibility for all of us to ensure that we team up together and ensure that we have what I call a collective approach to inventing tomorrow. So you see, I have this kind of how do I put it now? I have this kind of dilemma. So we definitely know that a lot of people will be using a lot of technology now. A lot of people will be leveraging on tech for the things that they do, which is very beautiful, which is very good. Now, if you're leveraging on tech, that's not bad. But I want to ask us, what can we invent out of the realities that this lockdown has created? Because those are things that we need to look at. And there are things that don't necessarily affect technology, but it's opportunity to really revisit those things, right? And I'm looking forward to seeing questions from you, maybe from Carol, from thank you, Maureen, for joining. Hello, Rashida, thank you for joining. Queenette, thank you for joining. Yes. So if you have any question, okay. Hello, bro. Can I go contrary? Yes. Why not? Dimeji Falano, adverse uninvestigate. Thank you. So yes, I'm willing, and I'm really expecting us to share our thoughts. We need to learn. We need to share. So Dimeji, what are your thoughts? You said you want to go contrary to what I've said. Yes, why not? Let's hear what you have to say. And so while we wait for Dimeji's feedback and comments, I'll just let you understand that the concept about us inventing tomorrow, right, is showing that, number one, that you're not altogether powerless. You're not necessarily bound by the power of the concept of uniformity. You're not altogether weak. You have the power in your hands. You have the choice in your hands. You must take a look at tomorrow and really visualize what you want to, what you want to feature in, and get to begin to invent it. To invent means to create. To invent means to develop. To invent means to make happen. To invent means to push forward or to push forth with. And when you look at that, it means that you need to understand that really the flavor behind the world today is tied to the level of people who are able to create their space, create their world, create their value. And you see, one of the reasons why a lot of people don't get the opportunity to invent tomorrow, don't get the opportunity to create tomorrow, is because most of the time people don't want to get involved, because most of the time people don't actually practice you know mention, noticing things, and once you are able to notice things, you are able to tackle things, you're able to ask questions, throw questions at things. You're getting to the point where you are able to take responsibility that, you know what, I too can make something change. I too can make something happen. Well, we're not also saying that you just want to do something because you want to name and claim something, but we believe that, the beauty of the sector, especially education, is going to be seen and is going to be experienced when a lot more people out there begin to take it into their hands to begin to what? Invent tomorrow. So Dimeji is still waiting for Dimeji for that feedback. I hope I'm making some degree of sense here. So that's really what it is, you know. So how then do you create? How then do you invent tomorrow? How then do you invent? How then do you invent tomorrow? Well, I'm going to share with you some points, and I'm going to also bring them down to the world of education, and I'm going to ask us questions as well. So if we're going to invent tomorrow, okay, so Dimeji has sent his epistle. Yes, we can come together to support one another to move forward. E.g., I can support another player in the education ecosystem, and someone else can support me too. We can go in different direction and still build a good. Yes. So inventing tomorrow does not necessarily mean that we're going contrary to the spirit of collaboration. Neither does it mean that we have to be one. So Dimeji, you're not necessarily going contrary. We are together actually, because if you, and I'm sure you know, you've been following some of the things I've been doing, especially on Investigate, you will realize that I've always said it. Last week I said it. Week before I also said it, that there's a curse sometimes tied to uniformity. A lot of times we champion uniformity to our detriment, you know. And yes, some things we will be together. Some things we will not. We will not be divided in a word, you know. But let me tell you something about the word individual, right? I've come to realize that when you say the word individual, it simply means you are indivisible. That is, you must understand that as an individual, there's a value and spice you bring to life. There's a value and spice you bring to the education sector. So, and I agree with you totally. So there's a Dimeji working within the ed tech space. You know, they have we have Chiazo working along the line and expertise and subject matter of quality and school quality control. We have the likes of Rhoda that's doing things phenomenally in the area of curriculum, you know. So we need to understand that everybody, just like the human anatomy, when you look at the body, you have the head. The head does not work on the ground. You have the feet, you have the hands. Absolutely correct. You know, Dimeji said, I have studied many ecosystems in the world. By nothing gets done by getting everybody to believe in it. Well, when you say getting everybody to believe in it, belief is a very key instrument into moving someone, because belief also is actually a branch out of vision and envisioning. But when we say believe and we're trying to say we want everybody to what? To adopt. That's when most of the time we need to adjust, because in life we've seen it that there are many times you have what you call early adopters, we have late adopters. People who adopt early are people who are easily on that fast track lane, people who see ahead, who practice insight and foresight. And if you notice my broadcast tonight, I said it. I said that we are not going to use insight for today's session, and going forward we want to begin to speak with the tool of foresight, because we need to understand that we also have the privilege to think and see through. We have the privilege to think and see ahead, you know. And there are some things that sometimes you don't change because you're waiting for somebody. Sometimes you change because you have the power and the willingness and the value to accompany the change that you're speaking about, you know. And so Charles says we need to go apart to play a significant part. Go apart. Let's qualify it because of the people who are looking at it. Yes, we all need. That's why I said individual. Individuals also means indivisible, undivided, a person that cannot be divided. So everybody has their uniqueness. However, sometimes in the state of a sector, in the state of a business, in the state of an industry, there is a place for the collective. And when we say the collective, we're not saying collective in terms of totally everybody. Do a census. If we are 300,000 in education, there's 300,000 more. No, there's a collective that can gather some momentum. That you could call it a quorum, right? And it sometimes could be two, it could be three, it could be four, it could be five. Whatever it is, you must make sure that what makes us tick is not necessarily the numerical strength, but the strength of agenda, the strength of belief, The quality of bias, I tell you something, you cannot grow a movement without bias. You must understand a lot of things will never appeal to people on logical terms. Sometimes you will not be able to win a debate on logical terms. Just like if somebody was to ask someone that believes in God, there's a level you cannot defend God to without going to the place of bias. There's a level you cannot defend your solution and your belief to without sometimes an element of bias. Bias is an energy that is linked to what we call enthusiasm, meaning that there's how do I call it now? There's an inner will that merges with your belief and makes your spirit rise to the occasion. You might not be able to say that this person is right, but at the same time, you cannot prove the person wrong as well. So if you cannot prove that I am wrong, but even though you are not saying that I'm right, then the spirit has risen up to the occasion to be able to deliver on that thing. And that's where the experts also call that thing, call it the place of flow, where you are at the level of accuracy because there's something about your inner mind that merges with the situation on ground that you are not going to stop because you are going to face obstacles, but you are ready and you have it resonated inside of you that in spite of obstacle you are going through. That's why they normally say most times people who talk about critical thinking and problem solving, they normally say that you have a way out of something. They also say you have a way through something. Now, you either go out, you either look out of something or you go through something. Going through something means that, look, we are believing the fact that this is the way to go. However, if I face a giant on my path, if I face a mountain in my way, I am ready to pull it through. But you see, that's why a lot of times people need to understand. And that's what the topic behind today's session is saying that, look, we need to get crazy in a resolute way, where we say that, guys, we will invent tomorrow. Invention is tied to an agenda. That's the truth about it. Every invention is tied to an agenda. And that agenda really is being able to say that, look, this is how we want to get things done. This is how we want to get things out. This is how we want to make sure that we begin to pull things through. And that's how it is. And let me just read one of the things I'm saying so that I don't get confused. Let few people believe and move on. Yes, others will join when they see signs and results. And even when they don't see the signs, the truth about it is that if you look at history, there are many people who have created the pivot of history, who it was their story, right? That people began to do what? Because there's a time, sometimes you'll find out that we all get to that level at different times in our lives, and we get to that level at different states and different points, where a lot of us just get to the point we say that, you know what, we're fed up. Normal is boring. We're tired. Now, the COVID-19 season is a perfect reset button because it has brought an equilibrium to everybody. It has brought a common denominator to everybody. Now, everybody is trying to think about what will happen after COVID. But you see, it's not enough to think or adjust for life or towards life after COVID. Because you see, when you adjust to a rhythm, it means you are not in control. When you adjust to a rhythm, it sometimes means that you're playing catch up. And if you're familiar with me, you normally see that I always say, especially when it comes to education, right? It is not enough to be proud of a catch-up kind of education. A catch-up kind of education is a kind of education that is seeking to do and do what it sees others do. Definitely, for you to do what others do, you have to wait for them to think it. You have to wait for them to birth it. You have to wait for them to do it. And sometimes not just doing it, you have to wait for them to prove it. Now, when they prove it, that's when you now want to think it, adjust it, tweak it, do it, and then become it. Now, there is gap in that process. There's value gap in that process. There's income gap in that process. There's meaning gap in that process. There's economic gap in that process. There's leadership gap in that process. There's market gap in that process. Now, if we understand what this blessing of lockdown is to us, we can decide and start with some functional things. Some of the things I've said before, we can start with some functional things and ask ourselves, why not, if not? And look at it. And I remember, was it last week or something I said, I was saying, and you see, changes are taking place before our very eyes. Like, it's just like, have you ever thought about it? Let's just think about it. Um, a pandemic came, yes, there was anxiety, there was fear, there's still anxiety, there's still fear. I mean, a lot of people are eager to go out, and somebody's thinking about it. I said, let me invent tomorrow. Is it not possible that people will need to use nose mask? Okay, yes. So people started buying nose masks. People started selling nose masks. The nose masks that we were selling was expensive and it wasn't protecting as much. And then you know what happened? A lot of people decided to invent their tomorrow, to create an economy out of a worse situation, to create the best out of a worse situation. And so you notice that those who could sew something, those who had the prowess of skills of sewing, those who had materials lying fallow. Mind you, remember, we've always been in a lockdown. Some people somehow found a way to get fabrics. Some people somehow found a way to sew fabrics. Some people somehow found a way to brand it, package it. Guess what? The moment people started going out, there were enough face masks as for sale. Now, that is a typical example of not just resourcefulness, but the workings behind it is where I'm going to. I'm not talking about the profit alone, I'm talking about the invention behind it. There's something that made somebody say, I can do something about this situation. I will do something about this situation. And therefore, because they were saying it, so I'm sure so many people have said, man, a lot of people make money. The story started with sanitizer. And some people thought about when we were faced with Ebola, they missed that window of opportunity. Now it came back again, and now they said to themselves that if I don't hit up the sanitizer opportunity, I will meet up with the nose opportunity. The hand brought an economy. Then we needed to wash hands. We needed to have sanitizer. The nose brought an economy. And then you see nose mask everywhere, designed, pattern after what people wear, designed and pattern after different shapes and different purposes. Some people are having a face shield as well. Now, a face shield is something new, but then you see, that is because people believe that it is within their hands and within their capacity to invent. Now, bring this back to education. Education is the least that experiences this kind of invention. I'm thankful for a handful of some people that come up with trainings, that come up with solution, advice, and the likes. Yes, but we need to understand that it cannot always be tilted. Listen, if we are going to invent tomorrow, we must be willing to first set an agenda for tomorrow that we want to invent. We must ensure that it's an invention that cuts across. That's the first thing. The invention must cut across. We should invent things that students will use. We should invent things that teachers will use. We should invent things that regulators will use. We should invent things that administrators will use. We should not just think of administrators. We should not just think of students. We should not just think of teachers. We should think of all the people in the value chain. We should think of what consultants we use. Let's not just talk about what people we use. Let's talk about the things that make up our reality. And let's see how we can also begin to explore how to visit such things. When we visit some things, it helps a lot of times. It helps a lot of times. Let me ask you a question. Think about it. So we don't know when we're resuming. So when we resume, and I remember Rhoda made a post sometime in the week and said that schools should start preparing for the first week of resumption in terms of anticipate how your first week will be when everyone is cleared to gather together like they used to gather. What would that first day or first week be like? Would it be a jamboree? Would it be a carnival? What exactly would it be like? Now, if we're thinking that way, let's also bring it back to say, what are the things that can change in Nigerian schooling system or in the Nigerian schooling model that can also be invented, as our topic speaks about it, inventing tomorrow. Inventing tomorrow. I want everyone listening to me to come up with that reality, that it's your responsibility either to team up or to stand alone, but guess what? Invent tomorrow. I understand that when it comes to collaboration, not everybody can collaborate. I have always said that you can't all collaborate. We can't collaborate together because of certain things. Number one, what will make us collaborate is tied to how we see things. Our vision must be right. There must be alignment. ethics is a question to answer, because so many people want things done, but they are not ethical in their approach. And so at the end of the day, in the name of collaboration, people have burnt their fingers, people have lost their faces, people have lost goodwill. You see, it's the eagerness to do things together so that we can make money, to do things together so that we can make impact. But you see, Jimmy said invent or back up, which is true. Yeah, but you need to understand that. And that's the reason we must get the average mind to start thinking. What works is not just what works because we've been given. What works should also be what we see that is functional and contextual to our reality today. I'm thinking about it, and let's just think about it. Look at a lot of trainings, a lot of conferences, a lot of webinars I've taken over, and you find out that a lot of people don't even necessarily plan to go to pay for a huge amount of space as an event center. Why? Because they feel they can achieve what they're trying to achieve online. What people thought was not possible, COVID-19 has made us know that really some things that you think is not possible, they are really possible. Now, if that is the case, that these things are so, then what it simply means is we need to start asking ourselves. So I'm going to throw some things out there, and I love the feedback I'm getting. Dimeji, thank you so much for for joining. Chiazo, thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. And those of you joining, thank you for joining. But let's take it a step further. Now, I want us to look at let's take a typical school, right? Now, schools are thinking of online, right? Okay, so of course we cannot totally eradicate the fact that there will be physical gathering, but let's begin to ask ourselves, what other things in school and in the schooling system can change? Or what other things are we willing to invent? What other things are we willing to put out there to say that, we're going to change the face of how things work? And because we want to change, we want it recorded that we are not, well, you're saying we're not right, but you cannot say we are wrong either. So, okay, so if you are not saying so, then you cannot tell us we're not wrong. So I want to ask, could it be that this is the best time to change what public school is? How can we invent tomorrow of public school? Online school is not a private school thing. Online school can actually be both. So in the name of making it a soft landing to avoid the issue of social distancing, why is it not possible that we totally have an online experience now? Where a lot of people believe that, well, we have a lot of people out of school. Why is it not possible that the face of public education, which is directly public schools, why is it that public schools cannot now get to the point where it is totally online? That will save the stress of costing, funding, save the stress of, well, they're looking for capital budget, projects to be done because of the kind of budget. Why? Why? Let's ask ourselves, can we reinvent? Let's not even use the word reinvent. Can we invent the tomorrow? Okay, let's even ask ourselves, can our uniform change whatever time third term will be ahead of the new term and ahead of the new session? Is it possible that we stop wearing the kind of uniforms we used to wear? Is it possible that we can get to a point where we can now say in Africa and in education in Nigeria, the kind of uniform we should wear should identify with our culture, should identify with our history, to identify with our weather? Can there be someone who will be bold enough to come up with a uniform line that is African, that you can actually see a post-COVID uniform era? Can we think about it when we look at the other areas and the value chain of education? This is just what we're trying to talk about. Ugochi, thank you for joining. So we are saying that it's time to understand that invention does not always have to do with computer. When you talk about invention, it doesn't always have to do with computer. Invention is invention, ability to bring and birth something of value based on an internal insight, based on an internal information, based on a process form of intellectual conversation. That's what innovation is. That's what invention is. Creating something. We are people who should create. If you can consume, then you can create, because that is what we need in the world of today. we can also win the war. See, a lot of times we don't understand that curriculum, yes, is not bad, but you see, if we don't have an edge in curriculum, we know we can have an edge in how we dress, we can have an edge in how we look, we can have an edge in some other things. So we need to get to that point where we begin to raise ourselves, stir ourselves up, and begin to say that, you know what, if we're going to be celebrating anything after COVID, it should be the inventions. It should be the inventions. It should be that tomorrow for us, which is starting today, has changed a lot of things. You know, I was musing about some things, and I shared some things on Investigate Live last week, and people were laughing at some of the things I was saying. And I held back the series because of the week had actually been a bit busy for me. But think about it in this way: is it not possible to also explore some of the things that a lot of people think, well, it's not working? Is it possible for us to explore it? I remember Nancy was saying that yes, it's not out of place for us to have a ministry of primary schools, or for us to have a ministry of private schools, for us to have a ministry of public schools separate. There's nothing wrong in us having a ministry of finishing school, or department and agency of finishing school. Now, when those conversations started last week, you see, sometimes it sounds as if we're asking people to do things, or we are faulting people for not doing things. But when we think about it again, some of these things, they're a product of reflection, but then not just reflection, they are an outcome of invention. We must begin to understand that we are the ones that will take up the responsibility and stop looking for something that someone has not done, and then do it to a point where people can now say, that's the man, that's the woman, that's the boy, that's the girl. Those are the people who have saved the day. We must begin to look at those areas that give us a major point of concern, and then begin to find a way where we plug value into it and close the gap as quickly as possible. Listen, if we understand the income window that we have right now, if we understand the possibility window that we have right now, you would jump at it and not waste any time. But you see, a lot of us, we are still buried in the figures of COVID 19, buried in the use of sanitizer, buried in the social distancing or no social distancing, the ease of lockdown. It's time, guys. It's time, guys. I would like to ask, if you have questions, please ask me your questions. Ask me your question, because really, this is not so much of an intellectual discourse of sharing with you points. I said, look, we need to use foresight. What are you thinking? Charles, what's in your mind? Dimitri, what's in your mind? Dari, what's in your mind? Oh, Dari is the one that said invent or pack up. Dari, thank you for joining. Ugochi, what's in your mind? Arietta, what's in your mind? Let's what's on your mind. Let's Effa, thank you for joining. Let's understand the school safety expert. Thank you for joining. I'm Carol of Cyber Consultancy. Thank you for joining. I want you to feel free. If you want to come online with me, why not? Let's begin to talk. Let's begin to ask ourselves, why not? Why not? If not, what are the things you think? I'm asking a question, and I'm hoping that some of my colleagues here online can bail us out. Let's see what are things that we can do that can make this happen in a short possible time, because we need to understand that people need to hear this. People need to see that, yes, they need to invent tomorrow. So, Dimitri, if you're there, send you an invite. You can come online, share with us. Larry, if you're there, why not? Let's see what can be done. Carol, is Carol still scared? Don't come online today. The event is going to be a greater event. All right. So while we wait for for people to respond, I just hope I've been able to set the ball rolling so that we all understand what I'm trying to share with us. So inventing tomorrow. I believe that it's just helping us to, right, get our perspective right. And when we get our perspective right, we're able to get things as it should, you know. So, um, trying to see, it just came up now. Are you talking about self-development or school development? Okay, thank you for that question. And Efrain Yang is saying that, am I talking about self-development or school development? Well, the topic cuts across, actually cuts across. Yes, self-development is part of inventing tomorrow. And school development is part of it. But we need to understand that the sector is in a state that is not the best that it can be at. In fact, we need people to begin to see how to enable the sector find the best of foothold. A lot of people are just acting as if they're, well, I understand the commercial pressure, I understand the financial pressure, but you see, we cannot act as vagabond in the sector or act as people who are just totally hungry, that we will do things anyhow in any way just so that we get by. And that's what affects the quality, right? Uh, that's what affects the quality of the kind of output, and that's why a lot of people don't take us seriously, right? In the sector, we hear so many things and so many, because a lot of times I even wonder what is it that people really see, right? How are people, visualizing the things that what's their kind of thought and perception, basically. So I'm joined by Carol finally today. Carol, thank you. It took me threatening you to come online, right?
Yeah, the volume's not great tonight, though.
The volume is not great. Oh, sorry about that. It's actually high. Um, all right. So can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
Okay. So, what are your thoughts? What are your takes on some of the things I've shared? We're talking about inventing tomorrow. What would you say about that? How do you see that topic?
I think, and again, I'm going to be very, very transparent, because I think it goes, we need to move away from polite conversation now. We're in a situation where we need to begin to be honest and transparent with one another. So where I think there's a few key things that you've said. You talked about collaboration. You talked about people with like minds coming together, and I think that's one of the things that you and I have had a conversation about. I think there is so much to learn from one another. I was determined I was coming online today because there's so many things that I've heard from you. I see things with a different set of eyes. Something that you said last is that this is I don't think it was this week on your program, but it was on an interview I think I saw with someone else. You said there is no education sector. You said this is an education sphere, and it is an opportunity for different people from in different professions to actually make a significant impact on education. So let me give you an example. There's people that are working in educational technology who have been banging on doors of schools for years and not getting an audience. And now all of us are saying, come. So I think there's going to be more openness moving forward. Yeah. There's going to be more conversation, more dialogue, more willingness to listen, because we've been made to stop. We've been made to think. We've been made to listen to one another. This forum is fantastic. Other people I know have probably been doing this for a very long time. I've always been too busy to go on Instagram, too busy to watch other people doing their thing. And now that I've stopped, I've realized that there's a whole world out there of expertise that I haven't tapped into, And so I'm now taking, it's sometimes exhausting, but I'm taking every opportunity to actually get out there and listen to other professionals, and to be able to sort of say, right, that's a gap of knowledge that I don't have. So how can I work collaboratively with that person to further enhance my offer to schools? So I think, you know, in terms of collaboration, that's one of the, in terms of schools, I mean, again, schools that are have traditionally been very closed and have not wanted to collaborate, not wanted to share good practice, are now beginning to see that they are possibly constrained because they've done that. And there's a lot to learn from each other in that process. So
fantastic.
That's just my small contribution.
Yeah. And you see, one of the things I also noticed is that a lot of people don't understand the demands of inventing tomorrow. And the reason sometimes some people feel handicapped is because most of the time in quest of their pursuit, they are driving, looking at the rear mirror, you know, and they're not looking forward. They're just looking at the rear mirror. So, and there's a level of comparison that actually is toxic to the individual. There's a level of comparison that's actually toxic to pursuit. There's a lot of speed required in the period that we find ourselves. And the speed is not to outdo another. The speed is to become the best that we can be, to have the best that we should possess. You know, so a lot of people, and it's so much like a culture-centric thing that we're definitely ready to do stuff. We learn to do stuff. We reach out to do stuff, but we do it looking at the inner mirror. We look at the rear mirror. And you see, one thing I've noticed in the past few years is that your body follows the direction of your eyes, right? So if you're looking at the rear mirror, if you're not careful, it's almost as good as you're speeding maybe 200 miles per hour, but your gear is stuck in reverse. So you're making motion, but you're not making progress. And you see, that's the thing that we have a lot of problem with. And sometimes, let me tell you, I think you brought us, you have a way of bringing things out from me though. So for a long time, this is the reason I refuse to mentor a lot of people. Because sometimes people just come across as they just want to get something so they can be the new thing, they can be the next thing. And while I'm not bothered about that, but I also price the value I can give to people. I don't want to create a rot, or I don't want to be a catalyst to facilitate a rot. If I have some level of knowledge, for example, I don't design my knowledge to eat up other people. I should design my knowledge to enable people, to grow people, to groom people, to nurture people. Because you see, the best of minds cannot get the best of the world of the sector if the sector is in a strong state. So, and that's why we need to invent tomorrow. You know, I said, and thankfully my friend Dimeji and Dari, they came up to say some things. Mama Bola, thank you for joining, and Bisola Babatunde, thank you for joining. Now, something happened, right? I said that was about 2-3 years ago. No, about 3 years ago, right? I came up with a challenge, and I'm going to start that challenge again, starting tonight. And I said, okay, why is it that we can't have what we call the African School Challenge? African School Fashion Challenge. And what was the fashion challenge about, right? Because of what we're talking about in terms of the subsectors and industries within education. So I said to them, I said, you know what? A lot of people are saying vocational school, vocational school, vocational school. But you see, saying something with a point does not necessarily deliver the value on that point. So I said to them, I said, okay, you know what? Let's do something here, right? African School Fashion Challenge. This is what we want to do. Can we get every school to say for the next 30 days, they're going to have to come to school in African attire or African print or dress in African style, just for 30 days. And, you know, and I told them, I said, do you know what you're going to do by coming up with that? And all it means is that automatically people will begin to go to their tailors. Automatically, people will begin to sew more just through one policy. it will create a spread of economy of scale. Just one functional policy, that 30 days. Now, imagine that was now something that happened in across the states. We would not have fabrics. We would not have fabrics. Trust me. We already have a culture where we like to wear uniform. We call it ashoebi. We have that culture already. Now, imagine that culture is now brought into the school system. Okay. So, sorry, I lost Carol there. I'm just going to go back again to come online. Yes. Yes. So, and for those of you connected, thank you for joining once again. So, like I was saying, like you can imagine the number, you can imagine the value that will come out of that. And those who normally have fashion clubs, all of a sudden, will now see the place of fashion, will see the place of joining this kind of functional policy. It can give birth. So, a lot of people are saying, oh, they don't have parents, parents don't pay school fees, parents don't do this. You'll be shocked. You have new level of parents that will be able to afford school fees. Why? Because the people you never marketed your school to before will now begin to be able to send their children to your school. Why? Because now the average tailor has gotten an economical advantage because of what? there is this as your school, as your Daria, you're cracking me. So you understand, which is true. Why can't we have that? And with the help of a proper supply chain management, you find out that the textile and fabric industry will come to a boom. You know, I don't know whether some people even know the cost of what it is to ship in suits into the country. And the suits we have, permit me to say, most of those suits they're imported. And if every teacher, right, even sometimes if you look at it, they will always say, oh, well, you're not dressing professional. Why? Because there's a degree of quality you will see in a teacher based on the kind of suit he's wearing. But I've come to realize that when we wear our African attire, even if you're not rich, even if you're not so wealthy, you still have a way of looking good. You have a way of looking great. You have a way of looking respectable. If we do that, it can demonstrate to the entire world a flip, and everybody will be shocked. Our numbers can make it a culture whereby everybody begins to see that, you know what, let's begin to have a different look at how we dress to school. And that is just looking at the power of a policy. The Lagos State Governor, His Excellency Sanwo-Olu, he said something, he said, okay, everybody is going to wear face mask. And if you look at it, getting into some supermarkets, you can't get into some supermarkets without face mask. You can't get into some particular buildings without face mask. That policy alone has created an economy, just a simple economy. And that's what inventing tomorrow simply means, right? That's what it simply means. You must be able to understand. And if we're able to do that, then there's nothing stopping us together. There's nothing really stopping us together. But we must make up our mind that where do we fix our eyes? It can never be at the rear view mirror. What are you looking for? You're looking for who is coming to come close to you. You're looking for who is coming to catch up with you. Oh, he did a workshop, you do your workshop. He did a master class, you do a master class. He did mentoring, you do mentoring. These things should So the I was talking
You were
about
talking about how one policy change can actually have a massive impact on one industry.
yes, and it also would become something that will enable the economy. So take for example, let's use private school for example that was talking about having maybe low turnout in enrollment, and then you find out at the end of the day that they're having to grab or to just to squabble for the available parents that they have. But most of them will never have sent a flyer or marketing material to a fashion designer. But see what would happen just overnight or over time, that the fashion designer will become one of the prospects with which you market your school to, just because of what? A change in policy.
The number of people. Yeah.
Because the person that didn't have the capacity to earn and to do certain things before automatically becomes that. Now, some clubs that run in schools that we call co-curricular or extracurricular clubs that probably people didn't find valuable. Why would I go to a fashion club, or why would I enroll in a vocational academy? But when people begin to see that a lot of people are coming out with economic power through those things, everybody, that's what happened. Before, who would want to be a musician? But when people began to see some degree of success, display of wealth in some musicians, then people started giving it a try, thinking about harnessing their musical skills. That's how it is. Modeling is one of the best tools to transfer knowledge. So if I can see it in someone else and I can see that it's working for someone else, guess what? Aspiration will follow. Once there's something to model, it's followed by aspiration. And that's what we are lacking. I thought about it and I said to, and I really want to hear your thoughts about it. I said to some few people some time ago, I said, we've gone to conferences outside the country, we've been to fantastic exhibitions outside the country. Why is it that people can't come from all over across the world to us? There's nothing stopping it from happening. All it just takes is someone should be determined, have excellence at the back of your mind, put a date down, and collaborate with effective people. You will have the same thing. And our music industry is a proof to that, a big time proof. We've seen some concerts that has happened in Nigeria that can stand stand side by side with some foreign concerts. Why? Because the industry has evolved. So now people there's a need for people to bring in gadgets. Why? Because they're going to pay for it. People are not minding to bring in state of the art camera. Why? Because people are paying for it, right? So it's just that's how things grow. But if we keep pushing ourselves to talk about why things are not there, we will just get so much swamped up that the energy that's left in us will go out of the window just because we're talking about issues.
It's very, very true. One of my greatest frustrations is that people don't understand why I've chosen to stay here in Nigeria instead of even during this period. Oh, I thought you'd have gone home to the UK. What for? Really? But there's so much opportunity here if we just changed our mindsets. We look at everything here has to be imported. Everything that is perceived as good must be imported. So, okay, I always ask this when I do training, right? I'll ask you, what are the aspirations of most parents for the occupation for their children in Nigeria? Doctor, lawyer, engineer, accountant, right? And I ask myself, truly, you don't hear the word teacher in that list. You don't hear the word manufacturer in that list. You don't hear the word astronaut in that list. Why? Why is it that we admire I say we because I feel like I'm Nigerian now. But why is it that in Nigeria we look at what the West is doing and admire what the West is doing, but we're not doing what the West is doing. It's nonsense. So, you know, for me, it starts by looking at not just the education system, but looking and educating the mind.
Yeah.
Looking and educating the mind of adults, the mind of society. Read everything that is foreign is good, everything that is African is bad. And we've got, because you know, some of the best and the most intelligent people I've ever met in my life have been in the last 5 years. And that's the truth. So it's not for lack of intellect. You know, but I think it comes back to something that you said a little while ago, which willingness to collaborate, the willingness to work together. People are looking in their rear mirror to say, who is on, you know, who is on my back? And you know, who is chasing this? There's so many people that even contact me because they want something. You know, there's nobody, very few. I'm not going to say nobody. Very few people have contacted me and say, how can I help to do what you're doing? Now, if we have that mentality, you know, people that are willing to you, that are willing to push you up and do their best to support you, guys, instead of simply saying, you mentioned something, right? People have come to you wanting mentorship so that they can go and be their own star. Now, what they don't realize is that part of mentorship is underneath and helping that person to rise and pushing that person up. And whilst you're pushing that person up, you're also rising. And that's what they don't get. And then at the appropriate time is now time when you've really grown. Not just, you know, I think the challenge here is it's got to be quick fix. Everything has to be quick fix. Let me take a little bit of knowledge and then run because I'm now an expert. Let me give you an example. I was working at a school in Delta State. I won't even mention any names. I had a long procedure with a member of staff where she kept turning up late for school. Her notes were not in on time. You know, her marking was always poor. So many different issues. In the end, with a lot of love, because that's what I do, I had to let her go. And she was very upset and she was very tearful. And I said, but you've left me no choice. You've had several warnings, both verbal warnings and written warnings. So I have no choice but to let you go. But, you know, as one door closes, another one opens. 3 months later, she came to see me to tell me she's opened her own school. This is a lady that had just been teaching 2 years. And she's now opening her own school. And my heart wanted to break. My heart wanted to weep. Because I thought, what on earth do you have to offer? What do you have to offer your teachers? What experience do you have? How can you, who has given an example that you can't turn up on time, you can't submit notes on time, you can't mark appropriately. So how are you going to challenge your teachers in doing that same thing? But everybody wants to be the organ. Everybody wants the boss. Nobody's prepared to do the hard work. Nobody's prepared to do the time and learn their job. I have been in education for over 25 years. I've done my time. So I can't have somebody that wants a quick fix coming along and taking what I have and then saying that they're a consultant because you haven't done the time. You know, and I think this is just the society that we're in general, until we stop and take stock. And this is a time to take stock. This is a time when we can actually rejig our thinking, rejig our minds, open up new opportunities. There's so many opportunities that this COVID situation has brought us back. Really.
And that's why I said we need to start thinking from foresight, not just inside, because everybody just wants to sound nice and do something great or show they've been able to catch up with the wagons and the likes. But one thing that has plagued us is the thing that should have blessed us. It's called the capitalist mindset. The capitalist mindset ideally should foster resourcefulness to the level where you're doing things, earning things, making money, and all that. But The backside of it, which is affecting us, like I said, it should have been blessing us, but it's cursing us, is that it has also created in our approach of our capitalist mindset, scarcity mentality. So everybody believes that there's not enough. And so if I see that someone doing consulting or someone doing school improvement, it's like there's no more business for you. We're talking about 210 million people in a particular country. I use numbers to be able to get people to think properly. Lagos has over 350,000 teachers. What's the highest number of teachers you've trained? I tell some people that, look, if you spend time to understand, there's that scarcity mentality does not allow you leverage on the capitalist mindset. And it also, sorry to say, it also affects us in the faith cycles. We taught a capitalist gospel. So everybody's just thinking about themselves, what they want to get, that God is tired of even listening to so many people because they're not asking for other people. We should get to a point where we're looking at having an abundance mindset that will lead to a possibility kind of mindset. Do you understand? That's just how it is. That's how it is. So when you think of a capitalist mentality and a capitalist mindset, and you think about a possibility mindset as a swap for it, what happens is that both will still give you something, but the others will make room for others. The others will factor others. You know, possibility means that I'm thinking of the value I can bring to one or many. Possibility thinks about the gap I can close for one or many. But in closing that gap, I'm adding value. In closing that gap, I'm earning money. People are earning money. Do you understand? A lot of people do certain things that make me laugh. You believe in division of labor, meaning that you can share the load, but you do not believe in the division of the value chain. So you are one and all. You are the cleaner, consultant, painter, brand, everything. Even though you have the capacity, at the point of earning, you won't share the load. Or at the point of instruction, you will share the work. So division of labor should be accompanied with division of value.
But I don't even know if it even goes that far. Truth be told, because I'm very clear. We've had this conversation. I'm very clear about what I do. I'm very, very clear about my niche, and I'm very, very clear about what I enjoy doing. I met somebody in Lagos who approached me and said, "Oh, I need to meet you. We're friends on Facebook." So I'd never met this person before, but she met me at a function and came and introduced herself. So we had a conversation, and as I always do, I said, "So what is it you do? What, I'm a consultant. Okay, what do you do?" "I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this." "Oh, right, okay. All right, well, for example, I don't do recruitment. So actually, that's where you could help me if I have any job opportunities that come up in Lagos in any of my schools." She said, "Why don't you do recruitment?" And I said, "Because I don't need to do, number one, I don't need to do recruitment. Number two, I don't want to do recruitment. And number three, there are people that are far better at doing recruitment than me. So I don't need to. I have my niche. I know where my niche is, and I'm happy to stay in that niche." She said, "Oh, but you could make so much money." And I said, "But I don't need to, because I have people and partners like you that I can call on if I have that need." Do you understand? But people want to be all people, and like you said, take. It's that capitalist mentality. Instead of realizing there are so many schools that are springing up every single day, all across the country. It's an exponential growth in schools. So why are we fighting? Why are we fighting to compete with one another when actually we can just be good at that thing that you're really good at? And let that be your niche market, and then work with, like I have a specialist who's good in special needs, and I started to partner with her I started to partner with her. So I've got a specialist in special special needs, she can come and advise and help with that. And she made my brand look stronger and look better because she worked under my brand when she was working for me. And then I just took a little bit off the top of her work because I referred it, and that was it. And that's how we work in partnership. And I like you say, I don't understand why we are constantly looking in the back mirror at people that are chasing our tail and thinking, I think I think one of the challenges is there's no safety nets here. So people that have struggled to make a living or struggled to start a business have got poor man's mentality. And by the time, once you've got poor man's mentality, you are constantly thinking, if I don't keep doing what I'm doing, you can create as much wealth, you can have as many cars as you want, you can have the big house, you can have all of those things, you can live on Banana Island, and you will still be hustling, and you'll still be keeping it to yourself because you'll be thinking that someday somebody's going to take all this away from me. And I don't understand that mentality. Yeah. I don't understand it. You understand it. I struggle with it.
Yeah, thank you for that very brilliant submission. Because I don't even like to use the word hustle because of how it's been used. Because there's something that comes with the word hustle. While we understand what we're trying to say with the word hustle, but for most people, it comes with something in a subtle way. When you hear hustle, they mean by all means, at all cost. Hustling for so many people means throwing ethics to the wind. Hustle, they say, oh, you don't understand, I'm a hustler. And people say it with so much of pride. And when I say, so I'm not saying that you're not hardworking, because there's an angle of hustle that means resourcefulness, hardworking, resilient. But the one that it's undertone, the underlining one is you hear a lot of people say, I'm a hustler, and they're saying, trying to say, I can do anything. I will go to any length, meaning that I don't mind to hurt you if that is what it takes. And when it gets to that point that someone doesn't have restriction, doesn't have a boundary, doesn't have something that confines him, so doesn't have an appeal to conscience, you will hurt yourself, you will hurt others in the process. And that's why I for one, don't like using the word, I'm a hustler, because it represents more of negative than the good. I'd rather take on the philosophy of what you mean by hustling to say, oh, you're a hard worker, great, I'm a hard worker. Oh, you're hardworking, great, I am hardworking. Oh, you're dutiful, you're diligent. When you start talking about hustler, we sing about it, we portray it, we display it through our body language. We're trying to say, I'm just in this and I'm driving through anything in my path to ensure I get it, even if it means to hurt someone, or even it means to do something shady. And I've seen it many times. I've had people come to me, I've counseled people, and you hear beautiful friendship turn sour, beautiful partnership turn sour. Why? The hustler showed up. And so we need to invent tomorrow as a matter of urgency, as a matter of must. We must invent it, because the success we desire is not by taking from another to the person's disadvantage, but it's creating our world, looking how to explore. Even if something looks like there's a bit of a drought, you can change the format. I normally say something that the education market, right, is a market, right? And I think maybe we'll spend time to start sharing some of these things with people so that they get to, stay reminded that there's no need for some things that they do. It's a market first and foremost. And when you say a market, what is a market? The economists say that a market is a special arrangement that brings together a buyer and a seller. Now, the market is not the product. The market is not the seller. The market is not the buyer. The market is the special arrangement that brings the buyer and the seller together. So a lot of us don't even have a clue of what our market is. We've not taken time to design our market. And so we think the seller is the market, or we think the buyer is the market. The market is a special arrangement. Now, when there's a sale, it means the buyer and the seller at the market were able to come together to agree. And so we need people to start having that understanding that the education market is the special arrangement that brings together buyer and seller. Some of us need to spend time, research, knowledge, and investment in creating the arrangement, which is the market.
Yes. There have been a few, you talked earlier about exhibitions. I've seen a few. I don't know the quality of them because I've not yet attended any of them yet. But I would like to see some quality events, education events held, across the nation, where buyers and sellers of all kinds in the sphere of education, not just schools, but in the sphere of education, come together. Buyers and sellers can expose themselves and buy and sell, like you said.
Yeah.
I think it's a great opportunity. When are you going to do it, Rotimi?
Well, we have ASNI. ASNI is put together by, you should know, Opashi. She's putting on ASNI. ASNI has been there. It's their 10th anniversary this year. We have TOSE. TOSE is by Mrs. Ogunde. Yeah. So, and these are platforms already, and thankfully, I've been at both, and it's just for them to also grow stronger, and we will be willing to bring our value and add to them so that they can grow bigger. Just like you said, it's not everybody that would have gotten a hang on mobilizing people, or it's not everybody that have the time, to deliver what they do. So why not just strengthen their platform, make it a stronger voice, make it a bigger platform, and at the end of the day, you'll be shocked. It might be one of those things people around the world will soon start coming to and say, you know what? Every time at so time of the year, all road leads to XYZ event. Yeah, that's it.
Let me just raise a question though, because I know with some of these exhibitions, for example, I was looking at a stand at one of the exhibitions, and they're quite pricey. And I was looking at that and thinking, okay, that's fine, because you have to invest in marketing. But I'm looking at the fact that the education sphere, the market in education is massive. It's huge. You've got those low fee paying schools who probably need the exposure, that can't afford to pay those kinds of fees to get a stand and to get that kind of exposure. So what do? And how do we get some kind of equity in the market? Equity even down to, you've got some schools that I'm aware of in Lagos are paying over 200,000 to their teachers to teach. And then you've got others that are barely paying 15,000. How 15,000 is what you pay the gate man in some cases. How can you be paying a professional teacher 15,000 and expect them to deliver a good product? I don't get that. I don't understand the rationale. Why is there, and so now we're getting onto the political sphere, the political aspect. How can you have an education sector of any value? Nobody aspires to be a good teacher. Nobody that's got a bit up here is aspiring to be a teacher, because their perception is teachers are very low paid. So we're not getting the quality that we need to raise the standards of the nation all the way up. So it's okay for those people at the top because they can pay for a foreign education, or they can pay for the very best schools in Nigeria that Nigeria has to offer. But what about the rest?
I think
that's a massive challenge I have.
So two things to answer to that. Quite true. Number one is that we need to get these people to appreciate our numbers. Once you begin to appreciate the numbers, then it will reflect in the disposition. Because if you, like you said, the best of so many exhibitions you have, maybe at the teaching session, 2,000 people, maybe 4,000 people at the most. But what if you were able to explain to them that you have 50,000 people planning to be at your event? Then you understand that for 50,000 people, you cannot feed them 50 stands. 50 stands is not enough. That means you need to open the doors. You need to raise the bar by getting more exhibitors, looking for exhibitors that will meet them at different points of needs, that deliver different value, that deliver different services. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So we must get them to appreciate the numbers. And the numbers, we're not just talking about in a state. People can travel into a state just because of an exhibition. So we shouldn't be thinking about, oh, the schools in a district. We should be thinking about a broader audience. Number two, they must also realize that their role actually is to, and I think it's the first place to start from a collective point. We must imbibe the spirit of an enabler. And so if I'm actually putting out a show, either an exhibition or a conference, while I might have my target market, I must, at least for the need of the space, at least within this year to next year, we must first see ourselves as enablers. If we do not enable the sector well enough, the sector will not come of age, the sector will not mature enough. So even the dreams and the visions and the strategy on your goal setting and vision board is tied to the growth of your terrain. And so there must be an element of you playing to the host community, which is for this case, the education sector, to say that, look, I think I am responsible to enable the people in that sector. So when I now see their numbers and I take on the responsibility of enabling them, I would come out with a creative way of giving different stands and different pricing. And the truth about it is, if we really get our hearts together, do you know there's still no event center that can take the capacity of what we are talking about?
Absolutely.
There's none. There's none.
Absolutely.
We will have. Yes.
When you go to the UK, we've got vets, we've got various education exhibitions over there, and you can't contain the people. It's absolute madness when people go, because they happen once a year, they happen for a period of time, and the best of the best go. The best trainers, the best consultants, the best manufacturers, and that's where all the anybody that's bringing out some new technology or a new software for education, they bring it out and they launch it at that event. It's such a critical event that you don't want to miss it, you know. And so you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. If we create those high quality platforms and we try and meet the needs of people across the board, and then the marketing is national, and if not international, because if you make it good enough, people from Ghana, people from Cameroon, people all across West Africa will come. It's possible. It's possible. I'm excited to be having this conversation, and I wish we could get a group of like-minded people together to actually. I was in and out right at the very beginning, but I heard you saying that it's not something along those lines. Is that actually plan? What are we going to actually be? You know, when this is, what are we doing now? What are we going to be doing once the doors open? How are we going to be taking action? Because that's you know. Again, one of my frustrations, I'm on so many WhatsApp platforms, and I'm just like, you know, some of them I've just had to come off because I think all you're doing is talking. I don't want, what are you actually doing? Stop talking now. Just do something. If you want to do something, even if it's just a small, what are you actually doing? Let's stop the talking. Let's have the dialogue, but have it with action points. So after this meeting, we're going to do this, 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 this. When we come back together, we'll have updates on this, this, and this. I can't be doing the meetings for the sake of meetings and talking for the sake of talking.
Yeah.
It's got to be, okay, so what's next?
Yeah,
what's next on the agenda? So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what you're going to be doing and how you're going to empower us all and how you're going to bring us all together under one roof and feed us.
You always have a way of pushing things back to me. But the truth is, I think there are a lot of people out there who are just on the edge of their seat, waiting for that last snowflake to cause that avalanche. That tipping point is what I sense that we have, because the attention that COVID-19 has given to us, the kind of reset it has presented to us, just reminds me of the time when I went with some educators to Kaduna. So I went with some educators to Kaduna and Abuja. We did something called the Education Storm, and we went round. You understand? And prior to the Education Storm, right, I had actually done a 21-state tour. And it was that really opened my mind to say, you know what? There's so much ground to cover. There's so much possibilities littered across the place. And there's so many people who, see, certain things that we do and take for granted, to some people, it's a big deal. I've had a training that I ended on just my second slide. I had about maybe 120 slides. I ended the training on second slide. Everyone was in tears. They've never had training at that level of experience before. I couldn't control the class anymore. Everybody was just weeping, right? I've had a training where we had public teachers and they were just laughing and saying they're tired of training. Who wants to train them? And I just said, just give me 20 minutes. If you want to go after 20 minutes, fine. We were to end the training by 1 p.m. They did not allow me to leave the place even at 6 p.m. These were people that just wanted to stay for 20 minutes. And I now looked at it and that was when I made up my mind. And, I like the likes of people like RONKEPOSH doing amazing stuff. People who decided not to allow their voices to be still. People might not like the fact that we're saying things and saying the truth and saying it in a blunt way. But you see, we need doers in the sector. We need people who will take up the baton and say, you know what, regardless of whatever it's out there, we will brave the odds and we'll do it. And just like you said, a lot of people, right, they're waiting for, the so-called the warriors, right? They're looking for their warriors who would stand and lead and say, then that cheer you on, that cheer you on. But you see, sometimes that has its place. But the kind of situation and state we are at, we don't want anybody cheering us up. Everybody should be in the forefront, right? Let's harmonize calendars where we have to, so that we do the little we can. Let's see the possibilities that we have, and then show people that it's possible. Already when this COVID-19 started and everything, now the first 2 weeks and the lockdown started, I remember when I was talking with you and all that, I was very quiet the first few days. And because I was just doing a lot of soaking in and reflection, and I got some angle and I know that, okay, now it's time to talk. Not because I didn't know what to say before. No, I always know what to say, but sometimes you have to internalize and reflect to understand what this really means. And I know, okay, after COVID-19, we are unleashing, as in you will think about it as, where did this fire come from? Why? Because we understand the work on ground. We understand we don't have enough time. We understand that we are going to take responsibility if anything is going to change. Do you understand? And then when people are willing to follow, I remember I made a post, I said, I'm giving 20 million naira away in terms of giveaway. And, I had at first just 6 people filled in their forms when they knew that there was deadline. Guess what? 700 and something people filled up, right? And I was now like, okay, let's now get, and then some people were asking questions. Some people called me 2 a.m., 3 a.m., thinking I was giving cash. And because they knew it wasn't cash, guess what? From that 700, the number shrunk.
Yes.
Right?
It's funny because that message appeared on one of my WhatsApp, and someone said, "Is this true? Does anyone know anything about this?" I say, "Yes, I do." They said, "Is it a scam?" I said, "It's not a scam." And then I heard nothing else. So I mean, I don't know where that went, but that was on one of the teachers' platforms here in Abuja, or one of the leadership platforms here in Abuja. You know, because they were like 20,000 giveaway. You know, but they obviously hadn't read the detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hadn't. So it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. Everybody's looking for giveaway. You know, and it's just not. It's not practical. I'm excited. Every time I've spoken to you or listened to you, I'm excited because you motivate me, you inspire me, and you challenge me. And I think I've been doing what I've been doing alone for so long. You know, and I feel it's rare that you meet people of like mind and actually have the time to converse and actually have the time to share those ideas. And if this season has given us anything, it's given us time, and you know, time to converse, time to begin to align with, you know, my vision, with your vision, with other people's vision. You know, Sister Yinka Agunde, you know, the work that she's doing is phenomenal in some of these low fee paying schools, you know, around and about. I think she's doing an incredible job. So, you know, I'm excited by what I've seen, by what I've heard, by the conversations that I've had, and I actually can't wait to get moving and to get going. And you know, and next time you're doing a tour, please take me along, because you know, I've been to quite a few states, but I would like to. Someone once said to me, "Would you go up north?" I said, "Why not?" "Yes, but you're a white woman." "Yeah, and as long as somebody makes sure that my safety and security is fine, why wouldn't I go? It's an adventure and it's an opportunity to reach people that, you know, like people like me don't go to the north, so why wouldn't I go? It's an opportunity. It's an amazing opportunity. So let's go. Next time, let's do the 36 days, yeah?
Yeah,
me and you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. I would like to thank everyone joining. RONKEPOSH, I'm seeing RONKEPOSH on Facebook here. Good. And Nat's Place, thank you for joining. Femi Law.
Hi.
Blessing, thank you for joining. Elizabeth, thank you for joining. Anna, Fan, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. We've had a great time today. We actually took time out to touch on this, but you know, like I normally tell people, it's not so much of what you know that matters, but it's what you do with what you know. And we're at that point where we need everyone to go with this fire. Invent tomorrow. Support others, and let's invent tomorrow. We can be that next thing. And I normally tell people, education is the next oil and gas. And guess what? Our barrels does not drop. It's not going to drop. So thank you very much. And we'll see you sometime soon. Yeah, have a great week ahead. And later. Thank you so much.
All right. Well done, Rotimi. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.